in life, like it doesn't even need to be work, but just having an approachable tone
Okay.
is so important if I'm picking up the phone and I'm calling someone, you want it to be inviting and you want it to be conversational. When you're courting a prospect through the buying process, you want them to feel like they can speak to you, that you have this approachable and inviting tone throughout all the conversations along the way. And that's where you build that level of trust and respect where they're almost buying, working with you. Yes, they're buying the product, but I think that approachable tone just carries so much weight.
Hey, welcome everybody to the Future of Selling podcast. My name is Rick Smith. I'm the Chief Customer Officer at Conquer. Conquer, if you're wondering, right, is a sales communications platform. So we live natively right inside of Salesforce, which is really unique for our industry. We also work with some of the largest enterprise customers and companies in the world. So I've been in and around sales most of my career. In one form or fashion or another, right? I spent a lot of time in client success, then as a CEO and a COO, a Chief Revenue Officer, and now Chief Customer Officer with Conquer. So great to be with you today, but enough about me. I want to introduce our guest today. So our guest, Elizabeth Richardson. Elizabeth, so glad to have you here. Elizabeth is now on our team at Conquer, and that is exciting, right? So I've known Elizabeth now for, I guess, a couple of months now.
Yeah.
But we know a lot of people that are common in our circles, which is really kind of cool. So you're a seasoned sales professional with a wealth of experience in B2B sales. Very impressive career, worked with a lot of really great technology companies. You're also a proud SMU alumni, which is
Yes,
pretty
I
unique for
am.
this year, right? So you're probably holding your head a little bit higher because they're like ranked in the top 10. They're going to be in the playoffs,
Yes.
football. So that's kind of cool. And currently live in Dallas and your husband is Zeke, and your two kids are Jack and Eleanor. So,
Yeah.
Elizabeth, welcome. Appreciate you being
Yeah.
here.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. This is going to be fun. I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, it's absolutely going to be fun. So this is
Yeah.
great. This is great. Before we get started, and we got a really unique topic today, a little bit different than we've done in the past. But before we get started, I always like to talk about kind of a couple of fun facts, right? We know about, and I guess I already talked about one with SMU, so that was kind of a
Yeah.
fun fact. But really fun fact number one, that you loved being an SDR, and you had to actually be talked into becoming an account executive, right? An AE. So
Yeah.
that's a pretty interesting fun fact. And in a minute, I want you to kind of expound on that just a little bit, right? Most people I meet want to become an AE and when they're an SDR, so that's different. You're also 6'2", which you're
Yeah.
taller than me, which really bothers me, but whatever, I don't care.
Yeah.
But you're 6'2", and you've never played basketball or volleyball, which I find probably very frustrating for a lot of high school coaches back in the day.
Oh, you nailed it. Yeah, no doubt. I'm the youngest of four girls
Yeah.
and I'm 6'2". And when I came to, high school and the coaches said, what, the youngest Turner girl isn't playing basketball or volleyball? They
Yeah.
were shook. They were absolutely shook. So
Like,
yeah,
no,
they
no,
called
no
her
good.
home. Yeah.
This is not going to work. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
Well, but you didn't, so that's okay. That's okay. You
Yeah.
had other things on your mind, so that's good news.
Yeah.
And then, fun fact number three: you're starstruck, easily starstruck when you
Oh yeah.
see like stars, like famous movie stars and things like that. Ever had any really embarrassing moments there, or not?
My friends and family who live in LA would say it's an embarrassment, but I think it's actually a great moments where, yeah, no, I'm one of those where I get starstruck. If I see a celebrity, I absolutely have to go up to them and say hi. So like the minute I land in LA or the minute I land in New York,
Yeah,
my eyes are peeled like I'm looking for those celebrities. But
yeah,
um, I did. So I did a class, a soul cycle class in LA before it was such a thing, before cycling was such a
right.
big thing. And I remember my friend who lived in LA said, you're going to see some celebrities here. And please, Elizabeth, do not speak to them. They don't want you to speak to them. And I was like, okay, challenge accepted.
Yeah,
But sure enough, I get on my bike and right next to me is Leslie Mann. I think a lot of people know her from she was in The Other Woman, and she's the
Right.
short. If you look her up, you'll know her. She's not like
Yeah.
A-list
Not like
celebrity,
a major
but
celebrity, but
yeah.
yeah.
But sure
Got it.
enough, I sit right next to her, and my friend is just like, "Don't do it, don't do it." So I went through the whole cycling class. I didn't say a word to her, but sure enough, after the class, we walk out. My friend goes to use the restroom, and I'm just waiting outside the studio for her. And
Yeah.
Leslie is standing right next to me, and so I had to say hi.
Yeah. You
And
got to
sure
do it.
enough, we had to. We were talking for 15 minutes. My friend walks out after using the restroom, and her eyes are like, "What are you doing? You're in conversation with her." And at the end of the conversation, I mean, I know her kids' names. She knows
Yeah.
where I'm from. She says, "Oh, have a great weekend in
That's
LA." And
awesome.
so, yeah,
Yeah. So that
it was
worked
fun.
out okay, right?
Yeah,
All right.
yeah,
Good
it
deal.
did. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I won't tell you about mine, but I had a situation like that with a professional basketball coach, and it didn't work out as well as yours did. But it's okay.
Yes.
No big deal. No big deal.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
anyway, some good fun facts about you. So
yeah.
again, so we know you a little bit better now, and we appreciate you being on the podcast today. The topic we're going to talk about, though, is again, I mentioned, is probably a little bit different than we've done before, and it's really about the underrepresentation of women
Mhm.
in the sales industry. And so I want to get your perspective on that and get your thoughts on that. I do have a couple of stats just to kind of throw out to get us started and maybe set the hook a little bit. Based on some of the research we've done, there's only 20% of B2B sales leadership positions are occupied by women. So
Yeah.
clearly underrepresentation there.
Mhm.
Only 25% of sales roles in technology are filled by women. So again, definitely an underrepresentation. But then just the other side of that coin, which I find really interesting. So leadership underrepresented, sales underrepresented. But the other side of that coin is that statistics also show us that women typically outperform men in these
Yeah.
sales roles. So anyway, let's kind of use that as the background for the conversation today, and then we'll end the conversation with maybe with three takeaways or four takeaways if you like, but a few takeaways that we can for other maybe women who are listening to the podcast and are interested in kind of following your path and want to be in a sales role. So sound good?
Yeah, no, absolutely. When I heard about the topic, I was really excited to weigh in on this because, it's the stats don't surprise me, to be
Yeah,
honest, but it is a bit disappointing, if that's the right word, that it hasn't, gotten a higher stat of women in this
yeah,
space. I think that high level, when I think about why the stats are what they are, I don't know the rhyme or rhythm, but I can think of, from my perspective, if you would have asked me, Elizabeth, just graduating from college, "Oh, I'm going to go into sales," I would have probably laughed and said, "No, I'm not. I'm not competitive. It's a sharky environment. That sounds extremely intimidating."
right.
I think sales gets a rep of being intimidating and very lots of pressure. Which, yes, some things, yes, of course you have to carry pressure of hitting goals and whatnot, but I think that that's part of why some women don't go into sales, is because of that environment. And then layer on top of that, it's predominantly male.
Yeah,
That can make it intimidating.
yeah,
So, but I think, when you started the fun fact of, I didn't want to go into sales, I think, from my perspective, if you surround yourself by mentors and people who see what you have to be a great sales professional and have confidence in you, it just sets up the environment to go succeed and love, what you do, and go get into sales as a woman.
right. Gotcha. Okay, good. Well, talk about that a little bit. So what inspired you to start your career in B2B sales anyway? Because
Yeah.
you said when you got out of college, that's not what you were. And I think most people, when they don't go to college and think, "Gosh, I'm going to be in sales. That's what I want to do." I
Yeah.
think people end up there for one reason or another, and then some are successful, some are not. So, what inspired you? After college, you go, I'm going to give this B2B sales thing a try.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. I don't think a lot of people graduate and say, "Hey, I'm going into sales." But I got my degree from SMU. Yes, pony up. And in marketing. And when I graduated, I had a friend reach out to me and share a little bit about a role as a BDR. I didn't know much about a BDR role, but what I did know is that it was a pretty good salary. It sounded like a good opportunity. So like a lot of people when you're early in your career, you think,
Right.
why not take the chance? So
Yeah.
I started out as a BDR. I was the one BDR for 7 account executives, which, oh my gosh, they were buying me coffee and treats and trying to get me to prospect for them. So
Yeah.
I was busy to say the least. So I took a chance and I went into that role and I liked it. I really liked the BDR role because in my perspective, it was black and white. You knew exactly what your goals were. You go make calls, you try to connect with people to get meetings. And it was you knew exactly how to structure your day. I'm a very organized person. I love structure, organization, all of that. And it was just natural for me to go into that, and I liked it. So that's how I ended up as a BDR. And once I was in it, I enjoyed it. But then I had a mentor at the time who reached out to me and said, who was the CEO of the company? It was Greg, who I was working with. And he said, hey, he called me ET. He still calls me ET because my maiden name was Turner, but he was like, ET, I think you should, we want to promote you into the account executive role. And I was just like, no, absolutely not. I don't want to do it. I've sat in forecast meetings. I know the pressure. I kind of, my innate personality, I'm competitive with myself, but I
Right.
don't love being competitive with others.
Right.
And I didn't feel the push to go there, but he had said, I know you can do it. I see you. I see how you operate. You have all the capabilities. And I actually needed a mentor at the time to instill that confidence in me because I was 25. I was young.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I could do and what I was capable of. But he saw it in me and said, gave me the courage and the kind of affirmation I needed. And then I ended up in the AE role. And it's funny now looking back, like I absolutely love it. And I kind
Right.
of don't want to go back to the BDR role because I
Right.
love being an
Right.
AE. So, yeah.
What do you think? And you mentioned Greg. We both know Greg. He's our CEO at Conquer now, and so I know Greg. I've worked with him for a long time now. What do you think he saw in you as an SDR that said, "Hey, you know what? She's going to make a great AE. We need to, and encourage you to make that jump."
It's interesting. I know that our past kind of, Rick, you and I, we both used to work in our past for companies where you focus on your innate personality, kind
Yeah.
of who you are, what makes you tick. And I think being fortunate enough to work in that kind of space and learn a lot about yourself, I think what he saw in me is I've learned that I really like to advocate for my customers. I like solving for them. And even when our solution might not meet their needs and we need to go to product and push to create something for them. I'm one of those where I
Right.
just love advocating for them and connecting the dots and making it work for them. And I think he
Yeah.
saw that. And I think he saw just that ability to connect with people. And I think that that's what goes a long way. If you're driven by communication and solving problems for your customers and genuinely, like with good intentions, caring about them and,
Right.
putting everything else aside, then the rest will fall into place. Of course, sales has ebbs and flows, but I think that that's really 80% of it
Right.
is that.
Okay, gotcha. So, I have a daughter that's in sales, right? And so I'm
Yeah.
always trying to talk to her and and encourage her in different ways and things like
Yeah.
that. But there are barriers, right, that she comes up against. So, what do you think are some of the biggest barriers for women in sales and being successful in a sales role, being hired into a sales role, moving into a sales leadership role?
Mhm.
And what are those barriers, and then how should they be overcome?
I think honestly, the one that is always really top of mind for me is being a woman. Some women may want the opportunity to start a family down the road. And I think it's hard to envision if you're a woman who wants that down the road. I think it's hard to envision how can I be in sales and be a working mom. I mean, sales, the reality of it is that you need to be running your deals and conversation. You need to be building pipeline.
Right.
That's what sales is. That's 101. And how can you do that with going, potentially wanting kids down the road and having that flexibility? And it's funny, when I started my career and I was seriously dating who's my husband now today, I had certain mentors kind of prepare me of saying, Elizabeth, down the road, you might want to go into more account management or something that has, that's less demanding when you have kids. And I remember thinking, but I don't really feel driven to do account management.
Not what I
I
want to
know
do.
it's not what I want to do. And I know my personality. I love sales because you get a no for an answer, then you go fight for more, and I
Right.
like that. And that's where account management, I felt like there were so many guardrails around there. And like, these are
Right.
your customers and this is what you have. So
Yeah.
I think there's this, preconceived notion that women, when you want to start a family, it's going to be difficult to be in sales. And it's funny, you work for the right company, or I just think companies have a lot of support for women who want that opportunity to have a family. And I think that sales can actually, you know, they can support you in that, and
Okay.
you work for the right people around you, and it actually is one of the most flexible roles, in my opinion, is being an
Right.
account executive. So I think that can be an intimidating factor of trying to
Okay.
figure out, how to have a family and be in sales.
How's that gone? I mean, you're married now to Zeke. You got
Yeah.
2 children. How do you balance all that, right? Because you're right, it is a
Yeah.
demanding role, and a lot of people need you, and you can't. It's hard to take your eye off the target, but you've got you got your family to take care of as well and contribute to, and all those things. So how do you balance that well?
I was extremely nervous to announce that I was pregnant with our first Jack to work. And it's funny, the things you anticipate being the hardest are sometimes not the hardest. And so it's so funny. I feel like I was so worried about how am I going to manage work and things like that. And then it's funny, then something else hits you that's way harder that has nothing to do with work. I feel like that's just
Yeah.
life. That's how it works. But
Yeah.
um it was actually a lot easier to manage when you work for a company that, I think, when you work and surround yourself with people who see you're a valuable asset and we've invested in you, and you being gone for 3 months, 4 months, whatever that might be,
Right.
that's actually, in the grand scheme of time, not that much. And we want you to come back. We want to have you here. And I think a lot of companies and leaders will find a way to, all hands on deck, let's make sure Elizabeth comes back to
Yeah.
work with open arms and also a pipeline. And we support her, and we have a way of, still compensating teammates who work with, your opportunities while you're gone, but also still compensate Elizabeth. So it just blew my mind when I announced that I was pregnant, and the first time I took maternity leave, how much the people around me found solutions, because
Right.
it's a interesting piece to navigate, because like I said, the reality is you're not there, you're not generating pipeline. But if you surround yourself by people who care about family and care about you, they'll make it work. And
Yeah.
so yeah, it's funny how that actually
Yeah.
wasn't difficult. And then I think, just being a working mom, I think with time, you just learn how to make 48 hours in the day for everything.
Right.
Your efficiency is just top notch. You just
Yeah.
learn how to be efficient. And I think I've learned with time, being a mom and working, that it's better to just, to absolutely put in the effort, but it's more important to get your notes out, to get don't fixate on perfection. Just get it done, and I think you let go of that because it's just more important to get things finished.
Got it. So I heard 2 things there, and again, kind of the question, how do you balance all this, right, with kids and a family and a full time career? First one is a company that's got a culture to support you, and team members to support you. Probably the most important thing, and then just being efficient, right? Just being able to put it all together. Don't get hung up on perfection. Just be as efficient as you can. I'm sure you've got probably a good morning routine and an evening routine and all those things put together to get through that. So
Yeah.
that makes sense. We mentioned a few minutes ago that studies show that women in sales roles are often more effective than men as far as reaching their targets and close win rates and all those kind of things. What are some of the qualities that cause that outcome from your perspective? I mean, are there certain qualities from a woman's perspective that helps? I mean, what do you think? What creates that
Yeah.
gap there?
I smile because I feel like the feminist in me is like, oh yes, I love hearing that. But I think that, some women, I think tone goes such a long way. And I think when you just the whole topic of, it's a space where predominantly men are working within, I think buyers are used to that. And then in a way, it sets you apart when you're the woman and they're speaking to a woman and not a male. So in a way, like look at it as a woman as an opportunity to stand out. And I think tone absolutely goes a long way. I think I've learned like just be an active listener. Just
Right.
100% listen more than you speak. And I think that, some women like to reflect more. And there's this, emotional intelligence component that ties into that I think, women like to reflect on conversations
Right.
and things like that. And so I think that can go a long way. And I'll just always go back to, I think tone is really a lot of it.
Yeah. When you say tone, what do you mean by that? Unpack that word a
Yeah.
little bit, if you will.
I think in life, like it doesn't even need to be work, but just having an approachable tone
Okay.
is so important if I'm picking up the phone and I'm calling someone, um, you want it to be inviting. You don't want it to be, and you want it to be conversational.
Right.
And I think that when you're courting a prospect through the buying process, that you want them to feel like they can speak to you, that you have this approachable and inviting tone throughout all the conversations along the way. And that's where you build that level of trust and respect where they almost, they're almost working with you. Yes, they're buying the product, but I think that approachable tone just carries so much weight.
Okay. Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. Um, so you mentioned Greg a minute ago. You mentioned him as a mentor. So, and it could be about Greg or someone else, right? But can you share a story about a mentor who really made a difference in your career and what you learned and what you learned from them?
Yes. Okay. So there's one that definitely comes to my mind. That's actually a little bit of a vulnerable moment for me. But
Okay.
when I was starting my career, when I just become an account executive, we were rebuilding the product and we were learning a lot about the product I was selling at the time. And so we went through a certification process where each rep was expected to become certified in pitching the product. We weren't given a lot of like scripting or things like that. They wanted to see, it was a team of about 6 account executives, and
Mhm.
they wanted to see how we approached demoing the product. And
Yeah.
so then we could go and do version 2, version 3 of our pitch.
Right.
So the 6 of us, our AEs, we were all kind of out on our own island trying to figure out how we want to pitch it. There was again no script. And
Yeah.
we had to go in front of the executive team to pitch it. And like I said earlier, what I've learned about myself is I'm very competitive with myself. I care a lot about things, but I'm not really competitive with others. And so I had to go and I practiced a lot. And then I got up there and I completely bombed it, like just did a terrible job. And I put in a lot of effort, but they asked me some questions that I didn't know. But to be
Yeah.
honest, like we weren't taught it, but they wanted to see how we would naturally respond.
Yeah.
And so it's a bit, in hindsight, I'm not as embarrassed, but in the moment I was very embarrassed because I just started crying, like
Right.
completely bawling because I just embarrassed myself
Were you in front of the team or were
the
you?
entire executive team.
Yeah.
Greg was there for that. And I walked away from that. And the next morning, I came into work and I had a handwritten note on my laptop from the chief marketing officer at the time. And he wrote me a really nice note and just said, Elizabeth, like yesterday was tough. And I thank you for doing that. I know that was a vulnerable moment. And I could tell you put a lot of practice and effort into it. And like, we're a team, we've got this. And he just gave me such a kind note that made me feel like it took away the embarrassment. And then I
Yeah.
understood the perspective of the purpose of the exercise.
Right.
And then it made me realize, wow, I'm surrounded by such great leaders that
Yeah.
we're a team and we're all here to win together. And this, it was better to do it in front of them than with a prospect. And
Yeah.
so I go back to how that mentor in my life, it's not someone I necessarily go get coffee with once a month, but that gesture stands out to me so much. And actually, like I hold on to that in life of just recognition and
Yeah.
recognizing your peers and how important that is. And so that's a big moment that I'll never forget.
Yeah, that it's interesting to me. I think a lot about that and just trust, right, in relationships and how that makes such a difference, especially working with an organization, right? There are just moments like that that take place that you realize I have a place here. and I don't have to worry about that. And I can lean in with everything that I am and make a difference, And so, yeah, just being able to feel that trust and that engagement and that whatever, however else you want to describe that can be pretty life changing. So that's really cool.
100%.
Are
I
you are
agree.
you are you being mentored right now? I mean, do you have a mentor that you work with on a regular basis or not? And just interested.
Yeah. I I'm one of those where I don't feel like I have a formal mentor that I
Okay.
meet with. But when I think about that topic, I think I have mentors in a lot of different aspects of my life,
Yeah.
and in different chapters of my life and different times. I think I gravitate towards, I think I mentioned at the beginning, I'm the youngest of four girls. And so
Right.
I gravitate towards being mentored. Um, I think I grew up with my sisters, guiding me and
Right.
pushing me and things like that. And led me to, uh, that's led me to seek out mentorship. And I think that I find mentors take a place in my life for whether it be professional topics, personal, spiritual. There's a lot of different avenues that lead
Yeah.
me to mentors. And I just feel like there's a lot throughout my life that I lean on in certain times. And it's interesting. I think of, you almost have to be vulnerable and open to find that mentorship, because if you're on your island alone and just operating in a solo space, how will one know, how to mentor you and how to
Right.
seek that out? So yeah, I've got just probably a lot in different capacities and different
Okay.
avenues.
Gotcha. Sounds like you've got a lot of mentors in your life, different capacities, right, for different things. Are you mentoring anyone, especially from a sales, perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely mentor a lot of SDRs or BDRs where I've been asked in a more formal environment of, hey, can you meet with, typically it's a lot of younger females who are starting out their career where it's, hey, can you help guide them or meet with them on a more formal process? And I've loved that. I've definitely done that quite a bit for some younger women in my life. And then, so yeah, I am asked to do that. And then it's funny, I think that mentorship on that topic, again, it just comes out in a lot of different avenues where depending what you go through in life, the longer you are around and the more you experience in life, there's different avenues to support people, whether it be, professionally of, hey, this is the career path. This is how, I want to land on the career path that you've taken, Elizabeth. How can you help guide me? What's your best practices? If it's
Right.
more personal of, hey, I've experiencing motherhood or loss or something like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I definitely, the more experience I've had, I do like mentoring others and
Okay.
truly enjoy it and just paying it back from all that others have given me.
Yeah, that's great. It's great you're doing that. So let's just imagine that you've got someone that you're speaking with right now that you're mentoring, right?
Yeah.
What advice would you like? What's the top two or three things that you would tell someone that a female like yourself that wants to get into the sales industry, married, maybe they're thinking about having a
Yeah.
child, or maybe they just had one. I mean, what would you tell them? How should they approach B2B sales, and how do they advance in that? What's the mindset that you would teach them?
No, it's a great question. I think number one, I would say, especially if you're just getting started in sales and you are an SDR or you're getting started as an account executive, sales is the backbone to every organization. It's you need sales to run an organization. And with that, I think there's a big opportunity for, as you're starting your career, get to know the other leaders in the company. Because let's say an RFP comes in, a request for a proposal, and most leaders will have a hand in that and help craft responses and be a part of it because they understand the importance of sales. And
Okay.
so I think as you enter into sales, you have such great visibility into the entire organization and take advantage of that. I mean, if I were just getting started, I would ask, as an SDR, I would ask an account executive, can I help support you in that RFP? And one, they would be grateful for that because RFPs can be the bane of our existence, right? They're long, there's a lot to it, but it's such a great opportunity to then go lean on all the other leaders in your organization and pull in those responses, get to know the company, what your key differences are at that organization and your product. And I think there's a lot there. And I just think leaders, again, want to help the sales team and take advantage of that visibility. So that would be one. And then two, I would say, I go back to, I think about how I was raised. My grandmother, my mom's mom, um, helped raise me. And she was the type where she always complimented people. If she went to the grocery store, she found someone to say, "Hey, I love your jacket." If she went to the hair salon, she told someone. She was just always giving compliments to people, and not afraid to give
Right.
compliments. And I would just say, in this environment of sales, going back to, preconceived notions, and people think it's sharky, it's competitive. Give that recognition where it's deserved, and it creates a team environment. It creates that winning environment, because not one person in sales has won every single time,
Right.
quarter over quarter. It has its ebbs and flows. And so be that team player of giving that recognition, calling things out when you see it, and don't be afraid to do that, because it creates this environment where you're all winning together. And
Right.
I would just say, lean into that. I think people get afraid to give compliments, and it's so important. I know we kind of talked about this earlier, just creating
Mm-hmm.
that environment, and just listen. Like, when you're early in your career, it's okay if you have nothing to say. It's okay. Like, just sit back and listen. And I'll never forget, somebody told me, when you're presenting pricing and you present this price in a great ROI format, is all this: present it and then stop talking and just listen, and
Be
they're just like,
quiet.
just be quiet.
That's
And so
it.
I think it goes a long way, just sitting back, listening, recognition. Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Got it. What would you like to see as we kind of look forward? I mean, the name of the podcast is the future of selling, right? As you look forward in your career, and as we move, next 10 years, 15 years, what would you like to see change in our industry, technology, sales,
Mhm.
to create more opportunities for women to enter those roles, and also to be successful in those roles? And so I'll stop there. What do you think?
Well, on the topic of technology and efficiency as a working mom, I mean, I just want to see technology continuing to evolve, where we can use technology to be as efficient as we can in our day-to-day jobs.
Yeah.
So that would be huge. I think we've come a long way in the last 10 years, 5 years of supporting working moms, but I would love a more open dialogue on that topic, especially for women in sales, of creating this environment where, we do support each other. And, I think it's really important. I am so lucky that my husband, he is an extremely supportive partner, where it's, I'm the mom, but I'm not doing 90% of the work. He's picking up the kids from school or helping drop off, and we're here for dinner. And I just think it takes everyone to support each other. And I would
Right.
love to see, you know, a lot of men stepping up and supporting these working moms, because we do a lot. So I just think I'm more of an open dialogue in that space, and then just anywhere that we can become more efficient with technology
Right.
will just save all of us.
All right. So become more efficient to make remove all the friction that you can possibly. You know how
Yeah.
much I love that word, right? Friction and
Yes.
flow. So remove all the friction you possibly can, and just create the opportunity for more flow, right? Just to get things done
Yeah.
as quickly and easily and effectively as possible, and then just more open
Mm-hmm.
dialogue around, hey, how do we be more supportive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, of women in sales, or probably any position, when they're having a family, and all the responsibilities that go along with that. Okay, gotcha,
Absolutely.
gotcha,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. For all
Um,
parents in sales. Yeah.
all right, good deal,
Yeah.
good deal. Okay, so we'll let you go, but let's think about takeaways, right? So if it were my daughter or someone else was listening to this, and they're like, "Man, a great conversation today, love Elizabeth," but let's take this down to two or three takeaways. What are our two or three take? I've got a couple things, but anything kind of top of mind for you? What's one or two takeaways? And if not, I can give you mine.
Yeah. I would think, number one, I would say, we touched on the topic of mentorship a bit, and I just think that's extremely important, being open to that, and being, creating that open dialogue for
Okay.
mentorship. So I think
Yeah.
that that's key. Um, and I would say, just getting rid of the stigmatism of, sales is for men, it's a competitive environment. It's actually so different. I think it's such an opportunity to actively listen and advocate for your customers and connect the dots and solve problems. And so just looking at sales is, getting rid of that, preconceived notion of what most people think it is,
Yeah.
and opening up the door for, what it really should be. So,
Okay, gotcha. So I'm going to repeat these.
yeah,
So one, get a mentor, right? Get someone
yeah,
you can talk to, and someone that can give you, guiding steps along the way. Because we don't know what we don't know. We can't see what we can't see. We need that person to kind of help us be the guide, so that we can be the hero in our own story. It's one way to think about it. And then get rid of that belief that it's an intimidating, highly competitive, dog eat dog world. Sales is a noble profession. I've got a couple of, we had a guy on a few weeks ago that we talk about that a lot, Jason Forrest, right? And he's like, it's a noble profession. I love that
I love
idea.
that.
And then thirdly, I think about your advice, right? Just to get in and to help and to learn, especially if you're at that first level, like as an SDR or BDR, whatever that may be. And, how can you help the account executive? How can you get connected with more of the leadership? How can you just learn and grow and be a part of the solution to create the kind of culture that you want to create, and the one that you want to be a part of? So
Absolutely.
okay, cool. Great takeaways. Well, thank you for being here today with us. We
Yeah.
appreciate it. Thanks for being on the team at Conquer, by the way. It's
Yes.
awesome. I'm so glad
Yes.
you're here. I know we're going to see each other a little bit later this week, so I'm
Yeah.
looking
Yeah.
forward to that. But otherwise, again, have a great rest of the day, and we'll catch up again soon.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. It's been fun.
All righty. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Thank you.